Hi, Larry Kruger with another session of Ask the Expert. Today I'm going to talk about a kind of management process that's referred to as the 5 whys. Many of you may have heard about this process, but basically the gist of it is that when you come across a minor problem, you basically ask the question why 5 times. Now it doesn't have to be 5 times, it could be 6 times, it could be 4 times, but the process is designed to get to the root of the problem for your particular concern. Now, I'm in the moving business, so I'm going to flip this, as you would guess, directly into the moving process. Now, one of the big problems you're probably facing today, if you're in the human resource business or if you're in the corporate world on your relocation programs, is that the trucks may be late. So a concern with people in the summertime is usually the transit time guides that take to get the truck to to the new location of the transferee. And so if you will indulge me here, we'll ask the questions why. Well, why the truck is late is because the driver had to do other moves en route. I'm talking long distance business now here. The driver or the organization had to do other business to get to your business so that it delays the process. Well, why is that? Well, the reason that is because during the summertime, the van lines, which the major players are part of, put on what are referred to as blackout caps on the busy season, which means that they're on their computers and they can't do any more business. They're booked, they're overbooked if you were in the hotel business. Now that then falls back on the booking agent to service their business. And in doing that, they have to rely on the network with the other agents to either possibly pick up the shipment, bring it back to a local warehouse and have it in place, staged, if you will, for a long distance unit that is going to eventually get to the destination of your transferee. Or they actually have to dispatch their own units out to pick up that shipment because the van line has basically said, we can't do it. They throw it back on you and ask you to do it or tell you to do if you want to do it. Why? Because, as mentioned a million times, there's a capacity issue. Their average age of a long distance driver in the moving industry is 55 years old. These folks are retiring. It's a nomadic life. It's a very physically demanding life. As I tape this in the U.S., there's several places in the U.S. Today that are over 100 degrees weather. We have folks out there loading 20,000 pounds of furniture by hand. Their counterparts in the transportation industry, that is all under stress, by the way, are backing up to a dock in an air-conditioned cab. Forklifts are loading their trucks and then they're driving the allotted time given by the transportation department. Our folks are loading 20,000 pounds of furniture and then driving the same distance. So when folks are looking at this industry, they're saying, well, that's a heck of a lot of work for basically the same amount of money as Bill's making over there backing up to the dock. And in the past, the long haul household goods driver made a better living than the freight drivers. Now it's starting to almost become the same animal, and that's a concern. Now, why is that? Is because everything is bottom line focused. We have a very difficult challenge in our industry to distinguish ourselves from a zero entry industry where anybody can become a mover tomorrow. If you're watching this, you can literally become a mover right now. Call yourself a mover, put an ad in the local paper or start a website. If you get some business, go rent a truck. So we have a very low margin industry with zero barrier of entry that is perceived by many to be a place where economies can be got. Very competitive and in a lot of cases, just a little aside here, I was at an event at a local relocation industry event, and of course I was bringing up the challenges in the moving industry and how critical they were. And the folks on stage appeased, the call and addressed the situation. The very next slide, this is, was about how a relocation company would go about attracting or presenting to a customer. And the very first bullet on said slide was that they would look at their supply chain to find economies in the moving process. Translated, they would try and reduce the cost. Now, if you're looking at reducing costs in an industry that has a capacity issues, we're not overly interested in volume. Capacity, I've said this before, capacity and volume don't work. We're looking at fair compensation. And that compensation, by the way, has to be trickled down to the folks that are doing the work. When you, as a corporation, put together an RFP and you get your pricing, and everybody's, every procurement person I've ever spoke to in my entire life has said, we're not bottom line focused. Yet, in an industry, you have to be within 10%, or, I don't care how magic you are. There is a threshold, and the movers, because they're in such desperate straits, they keep pushing the prices on that level because they need the business to keep everybody there. In Algonquin Park, where I'm in Canada, and hunters and First Nations people will tell you that you'll actually starve to death if you just eat moose meat. You'll starve to death on a full stomach because there's not enough protein in it. And that's what's happened in the moving industry. We're actually doing volume, but we're not making any money to keep, to train, to mentor new people getting into the industry. So when the truck is late, you're dealing with a massive situation that can only be addressed by compensation. And, to be quite honest with you, sitting right here, for the past 4 or 5 years, our services have been declining, and it's going to take us that long to get out of the ditch. And we have to do that with increased pricing and more focus on the folks that are doing the work and fairly compensating them. And it doesn't matter if you're throwing container services into the mix or not, you still need labor. It's a hand-moving furniture. So ask yourself the 5 whys as to why you're not focusing your spend on making sure that the most critical part of your relocation is being compensated properly. Hug a mover, don't ask me why. Have a great day.